Welcome to the NNBN podcast, talking with businesses, charities and organisations across Northamptonshire.
Sponsored by Poppy Design Studio. Find us at poppydesignstudio.com.
So next up on the next podcast is with Robin Webber-Jones, who's the principal of the Tresham College group, which is part of the Bedford College group. And I'm going to get this right, but it also Robin, I tell you what, you may as well introduce yourself actually, because I tell you what, there's a lot here, isn't there?
Well, so we're a diverse organisation. But look, firstly, Simon, thank you for having us on the podcast. It's kind of great to be able to talk to you and everybody in the network. So the Bedford College Group itself, which is the organisation I work for, is the 7th largest general further education college group in the country, and we comprise a range of different colleges. And in there, I look after Tresham College, which has campuses in Corby, Kettering and Wellingborough. I also look after the National College for Motorsport, which is based at Silverstone, just next to the circuit there. And I also look after the newly opened Corby Sixth Form, and alongside that, the Bedford Sixth Form, which is another kind of college within the group as well. We have a whole range of other colleges: Central Beds, Bedford College, Shuttleworth College within the group. But my great colleagues get to look after those, so it's all good.
And that's the reason why I let you do the introduction there, not me, because there is a lot within the Bedford College group. But thank you for clearing that up. And you mentioned the Corby Sixth Form. We'll come on to that very shortly. But wow, college, it's a pretty impressive place from what I've seen from the building. The great assets there as well, which can be used for the community as well. But your actual role there as the principal sort of oversees the whole of what you've just described there, doesn't it?
So the role of a principal traditionally in education was about leading learning. And I think how we think about learning and how we think about skills has changed certainly quite dramatically in the past sort of 10 to 15 years, but I think even more dramatically in the last 12 months or so, really. So our role and the way in which I kind of try and think about Tresham in particular, because that's very closely tied into the fabric of Northamptonshire, really, is about how we are an anchor institution. And so by that, it's about how we create opportunities for young people to come and learn all the skills that they need to take them forward to flourish. Now, that's using some of those incredible facilities that we have to teach people to go into the construction trades or to go into the health profession or go and set up their own businesses or go into digital things or whatever else. But it's also about how we support people to develop kind of qualities that you might term human skills. So, their ability to collaborate, work with others, do projects, all of those sorts of things which are so critical to the future workforce. And we know that if we have people working in jobs that they enjoy, that's good for the economy and it's good for them. And it means that the area becomes an even better place to live. So, so my role is really around how we start to engage a broad range of networks, business, voluntary, community, social enterprise sector, in with education, so that we can support people either reskilling, upskilling, getting into the workplace, or in fact thinking more long term about the career that they might have in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned about the skills, obviously, firstly, because there's obviously quite a bit we're going to be talking through in the next sort of 15, 20 minutes. But how important is some of the skills that you're training for at the moment, for the workplace at the moment? Do you think that there's a lot of opportunities out there for students to progress into these roles, or is it quite a challenging landscape that we've seen? Because we hear a lot of things where people say, students aren't quite work ready, or we hear they haven't got the employment opportunities for what's being taught. It's about closing that gap. So what's your sort of thoughts on it?
So I think it's incredibly complicated and an incredibly dynamic thing. I think so first of all, to kind of unpack the first part of your question, in terms of things people come to learn, there are loads of job opportunities out there, and often it's about people being, making sure that they've got the ambition for themselves, really. And obviously, and it's not just at Tresham or the Corby Sixth Form, it's actually any college in the country should do and will do anything that they can to support individuals to gain the career that they want to gain by learning those subject specific skills in whatever sector it is that they choose to go and work in. Our curriculum, and again, the curriculum in most colleges now has some kind of employer engagement, work experience, work-related learning, an industry project as standard. So, most young people or adults coming to retrain will have that connection back to industry. And that's really important to make sure that the skills that are being learned are current. We often hear challenges around things like English and maths, and as any kind of post-16 learning provider has to do, we have to make sure that individuals keep studying English and maths so they get at least a grade 4 GCSE or, in old money, C equivalent. And we have to do that until they're 18, because they're a kind of, they're a really important life skill, being able to kind of use language and use number and to be able to read and to interpret. But increasingly, we see employers, and when we engage with employer networks and when we talk about all the work we're doing, we see employers say to us, what we want are people who can problem solve. We want people with a good sense of humour. We want people who can bring the kind of whole selves into the organisation. And we do everything that we can. And again, it isn't just about us, it's about the whole college sector, really. Do all they can to support people to do that. So, for example, the way in which we might start to timetable our access to higher education provision for adults looking to reskill and maybe going to nursing or go into another career, our whole timetabling will hopefully fit around their family and their other work commitments. If you're a young person, sort of 16, 17 years of age coming in, we will make sure that there is project work for people to be doing so they can develop critical skills, evaluative skills, all of those things that are so important to employers and to making sure that kind of workplaces and businesses thrive. And a big part of that is of course all about ambition and how we make sure that we understand barriers people have to learning and their starting points, and do all we can to try and get them on the right track. And I guess the thing that I task my teams to do, and that we are tasked to do by government every day, is to make sure that we're really understanding the backgrounds and the circumstances of those individuals, so we can make sure we support them, we can make sure that we celebrate differences and diversity, and that we provide kind of equity for all, really, who walk through the door.
Yeah, it's great to hear, because you are there as that sort of stepping stone from school to then obviously then play the role of the college, and then into the workforce with things like apprenticeships and things, and we talk about T levels as well, and everything like that. So it's great to hear that work goes on within the colleges, because it is a big step for the younger generation, isn't it, coming out of the school sector and the education sector into obviously the further education sector. So it's great to hear that goes on.
And I think those transitions are really interesting. There's some work that we've been engaged in. So I think across all kind of phases of education, transition is a really, really important and really critical thing. And if you think about the world of work, as a business grows and develops, it transitions, and that transition needs management. If individuals are moving job to go and work for a new organisation or changing role within an organisation, that transition needs support and nurture and coaching. And the same is absolutely true if you take a young person, transitioning from a primary education setting to a secondary education setting, and then from a secondary education setting into a further education setting. So there's lots of things that we try to do to make sure that movement is smooth, that people, I guess, gain those time management skills that are needed, to the independent learning skills, all of those critical faculties that are needed. And it's those things that become really important actually in the work that we do. And I think one of the challenges that education providers or all skills providers have is we have this sort of language which is often built around funding regimes that we work in, or inspection regimes that we're involved in, and in many ways lots of industries are the same. And so we have to work very hard, and I'd be really keen to hear from any of your members really on ways in which this can be supported, to make sure we get that language of progression onto the next step, be that university, then into employment or straight into employment, and the language of industry really kind of well embedded in the curriculum. So we're not having conversations about, is someone doing a T level or are they doing, an alternative academic qualification or whatever it might be. But actually people are understanding that, if somebody has completed their studies at the Corby Sixth Form or at Tresham or at the National College for Motorsport, actually there's a set of kind of values and attributes that they will have that can be translated into any business setting.
Yeah, brilliant. And transition, that was the word I was trying to think of when we were talking a minute ago. I was like, I know there's a word or a term you use, and I couldn't think what it was, but thanks for clearing that up. And I suppose the college also plays a role where maybe the parents don't necessarily understand, everything about their child, or the guardians don't necessarily understand, because obviously the college does play that sort of role in the community, doesn't it? That it does help our younger generations transition through life's journey. Yeah,
so I was reflecting, I was doing some reading the other day just about, so if you think about the processor that's in the, in every computer, it's in the devices that we're talking through now at the minute. If you look at how that has developed, grown, changed so exponentially over a really short space of time, it's kind of transformed the way in which the world operates, the way people communicate, the way business is done. In many ways, it got us through the really horrific time that was the pandemic, and so on and so forth. And so to a large extent, what we need to do is make sure that we can in some ways go, this is what the future might look like. Now, 20, 30 years ago, we might not have been able to imagine technology being and doing what it can do now. And I'm sure, it's really difficult to see just a few years in the horizon. So to see 20, 30 years time, what will the world be like? How will automation, how will AI, how will all of these other things be involved in transforming our lives? But our role is to make sure we can have open conversations with parents, guardians, employers, whoever it might be, to help people try and imagine what that future could be and where they see themselves in that future. And it isn't just about, kind of somebody coming in and wanting to learn to be a bricklayer or a carpenter or whatever. It's about then how we say to people, well, what will that look like in the future? And how can you build the best life you can for yourself and your community around it? And then, how do you engage in democracy and culture and sport and in everything else that goes on to make a place? So it becomes much bigger, and it should become much bigger than somebody, developing really important skills that will carry them through to a much wider conversation about society. And again, that can become kind of quite difficult in some of the funding regimes and other things that we exist in. But nevertheless, that's kind of what's really exciting, actually, and where we can be really inventive and hopefully where people can really start to think about their future in an optimistic way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the future, because obviously we are seeing a lot of change. We're seeing, obviously, AI is becoming more and more popular every day and more involved in our lives. But what about things like, simple car mechanics? Are there courses that the college is training on, maybe EVs and things like that with the electric vehicles coming in?
Yeah. So, you have to assume that as an organisation, for most things, we can start with the very basic skills, techniques, some of the very traditional, when it comes to things like engineering or motor vehicle or construction or painting and decorating, the kind of underpinning skills needed for the craft, some of the kind of the historical skills that were developed in those crafts, right the way through to kind of, modern methods of construction, and certainly in the case of motor vehicle, what, EVs look like, maybe even some horizon scanning, what will cars running on hydrogen potentially look like? Again, if you look at the work we do at the National College for Motorsport, a lot of that is about training mechanics for the race industry, and many of those individuals go on and have thriving careers. And we're having conversations at the minute about, so what does the future of race manufacture, race, being a race technician, being a race mechanic look like? And then how do we invest in technologies and skills and staff development to be able to do that? And in many ways, that's where partnership becomes so key. So people might have seen recently, along with the UTC at Silverstone, with the Grand Prix Trust, we've launched a bursary scheme for our students to go and be able to really develop their career. So get extra work experience as it's needed, get access to extra kit, resources, anything they need to allow their career to fly. And that whole project wouldn't have come about if it wasn't for a kind of coming together of industry, of individuals who have been successful in industry wanting to see it thrive in the future, and learning providers being there to say, well, actually we can train that future talent if we can work together on what that pipeline looks like.
And these are all businesses or people from external advisors or whatever getting involved with the college, which helps to shape future curriculum. Is that right?
Exactly. So, and again, if any of your, if anybody listening to this is interested across all of our curriculum areas, we are interested in how we can pull employers together or work with individual employers on shaping that curriculum, working with groups of young people, being given live briefs and projects to be set. So I think some of our business students, for example, there was a charity that you put us in touch with, Simon, actually, who needed a bit of support around some event management and other bits and pieces. So, some of our business students have worked with them to be able to support the work that they're doing. And that's just one example of many that we have within the organisation. So we're always really keen to hear from people and work with people.
And I think that's great, because it's kind of a win-win situation, not only for the business that can obviously then engage with the college, but also for the college students to actually get some hands-on experience around, typical life challenges or life situations that can go towards their studies and their own experience. So yeah, I mean, if anybody does want to get involved, Robin, we'll come on to that right at the end, how they can get in contact with yourselves and maybe explore opportunities in the future. Because I think there was an interesting stat that was released halfway through last year, I think, from the Chamber of Commerce at one of the LSIP meetings, the Local Skills Improvement Plan, around about 6% of local businesses actually engage in the further education providers, which I was horrified at. I was like, wow, is that it? And I think, my gosh, we're doing whatever we can to work with the college to help engage students and businesses and the college together. So I was horrified by that. It was quite an incredible statistic.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things become quite interesting because, how people determine FE rather than, I go to Tresham or I go to whichever college it is, that they might not know as further education. They might know it as the organisation down the road that does reskilling is sort of interesting. I think part of what you articulate there, Simon, is also to do with the kind of language barrier. We train and work with tens of thousands of individuals every single year, and we're always keen to work with more. And that's everything from partnerships we have with North Northamptonshire Council, Job Centre Plus to support retraining individuals to get them work through sector-based work academies or careers events we do, to programmes for English for speakers of other languages to support them again gaining the skills that they need to go into work, right through to delivering a whole digital computing curriculum that lasts 2 years and is done in some state-of-the-art classrooms and things that we have. So some of it is about language, and some of it is just about making sure that our doors are open, and that we are really up for a conversation, and that we're agile and we make things easy for business as well. I think that's that's the other thing. If people want skilled people, or they want to talk about how they can retrain their workforce of things, and for that to happen quite quickly, then we're really keen for a conversation, really keen to be as agile as we can be to make that happen.
So engagement is critical, isn't it? So, if people are listening, again, we'll give out some contact details towards the end, but yeah, engagement is critical to be able to help shape, for the education sector to understand what business needs, businesses to understand, some of the student requirements coming out of the college as they move into employment. So, you've got our full backing on that as well. If there's anything we can continue working on with you to help to do that, then we're here for that reason. Now, we touched on the future a minute ago about, what some future courses may look like with the green skills and things, but we haven't touched on Vision 2050 yet, which was the big conference last year held at Kettering Park Hotel. What was that like for you? Because you were one of the speakers that day, weren't you?
It's really great, and it's a really great project. And I'll tell you why it's great. Often we tend to think in, kind of 3-5 year horizons, maybe 10 at a push. What Vision 2050 is trying to do is say, okay, what will North Northamptonshire be like in 2050? What will housing be like? What will industry be like? What will culture be like? And then you start getting into all sorts of interesting things around, so if you're going to do all that, what kind of energy supplies do we need? What kind, all of that stuff that falls through it. And of course, one of the underpinning things that affects all of that really is skills. We need people to go into jobs to kind of support the health infrastructure, to build the houses, to work in the local community, so on and so forth. So I was very fortunate that I got to talk about some of the current opportunities and challenges really across the area as I see them and as we see them around that. And then from there, what we've done is there's been, people are interested, and again, it's kind of open to everybody. We've said we will convene some discussions about how we take that skills agenda forward, and skills and place and what the future looks like. So we've had a couple of discussions that's involved the kind of the council, the education sector, a range of employers, yourself, Simon, and other business representatives, and anybody else who wants to get involved can do, really. And from that, we're developing an action plan with some short, medium, and longer term targets in there. So again, focusing in particular on work on educational transitions, because we feel that's kind of quite important. Doing some work for young people who feel particularly disenfranchised, to make sure that they get on a path that supports them to live a flourishing life in the future in the area. We're looking at what we know about the current economic regeneration and skills landscape, and where the gaps are, and what it is we might therefore need to find out in the future, and how we tackle some of the kind of really the ongoing wicked problems in there, as it were. We're also looking at how we can start to build skills escalators, not just with ourselves, but with other training providers, the university, to support the health sector, for example, and a whole raft of other sectors. So it's still relatively early days, but already we've got some actions up and running. We are doing, hopefully doing a joint education industry AI conference in early March, and some details about that will be coming out shortly. So there's a whole raft of things that have emerged from there, and I think I'm looking forward to the kind of follow-up events, conferences, and to find out what everybody else has been doing, because it's a really exciting and interesting agenda, and one that hopefully builds on the work of local skills improvement plans and other bits and pieces.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to seeing how it all sort of pans out this year as well, because it's such a big challenge for us all to really tackle in different different directions and different areas, and but collectively we can do it, I believe, and it's a case of just pulling people together to keep meeting, talking through some of the problems, and see what we can do to work together. So yeah, looking forward to it. You mentioned about the Corby Sixth Form that recently opened, didn't it, in the town centre in Corby? How's that going since it opened?
It did. It is a magnificent regeneration project, and I can't kind of thank all of the stakeholders that have been involved in pulling that together enough, really. So, it's funded through the Levelling Up Fund, so it involved, North Northamptonshire Council and government, which was great. It involved, the owners of the building, and it's the kind of old library and associated area around there that was not in the best state of repairs, I don't think, when we were able to take it on. But we've kind of totally reconditioned the building. We've made it net zero. So the only bit of carbon that building emits comes from the Bunsen burners in the science labs, and until they find an alternative to the Bunsen burner, I'm afraid we're going to be stuck with with that small bit of carbon coming out. But the rest of it's carbon neutral. It's all new. It just looks stunning. It's a beautiful learning environment. We've got our first cohort of students going through at the minute. Obviously, we recruit the next cohort in September. We've run a number of open evenings, and interest is really buoyant. It's a great asset for Corby. It's a great alternative to kind of school sixth form education, which and that is right for some people, but it's not right for all people. So giving people those options is really kind of critical. And it makes sure that within the town we have both a kind of technical professional offering on our Oakley Road campus, and we have an academic offering as well. And so we're just ever so thankful for everybody who was involved in it, really.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it's going to bring footfall into Corby Town Centre as well. So that will obviously add value to, or add further value to the town as well. So it's a great, well done on getting it open.
I think it already is doing, Simon. I think the students heading into the town as frequently, as soon as their lessons are over and things, to go and undertake economic activity in the town. So it's it's great.
Fantastic. So we've been talking about engagement, how people can get further involved with the college. What's the best way for people to get involved if they want to support some of the activities, or if they want to find out more about the careers days, job fair days, and the just general engagement with the college?
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do is to log on to our website. Now, the best way onto that, to be honest with you, might depend on which area you're most interested in. So just go onto any search engine. There's a Corby sixth form, put that in. You'll find us as the top link. Same for Tresham, same for the National College for Motorsport. Alternatively, I'm always really happy to hear from businesses and organisations out there, Simon. So I'm quite happy for people to email me. My email is rwebber, that's WEBBER-Jones, JONES, at bedford.ac.uk. I'm probably not the individual that can operationally do everything, but we can certainly get you to the right people that can and really take those conversations forward.